Hi, this is Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. In this episode, I want to talk to you about the principles of leverage and optimization. So stay tuned and let's jump right into it. It's almost now 26 years of just coaching financial advisors. What I see, and I still see, I saw it the other day, and it's something I've seen for 26 years now, is advisors that overlook opportunities right in front of them. I think as an industry, especially if you've been at this for several decades now, you kind of grew up in the industry where more was always better. It's always about new households, right, and getting out there and business development, and all those things are true. They're not inaccurate. But if you're overlooking the things that are in front of you, that is not a best business practice. And what I mean primarily is most advisors operate under assumptions. Assumption number one, that they have a great relationship with all their clients. Assumption number two, because of that assumption number one, that the client will declare a change in their status. So if they retire or get a liquidity event or CD comes due, or they forgot to tell them about that other account over there, that it will just kind of manifest itself, and it's simply not true. So one of the things that I really work on with my clients, I like simple things. I think a lot of times consultants in our industry can make things more complex than they are sometimes for their own reasons, quite frankly. And to me, one of the standards of care that I talk about all the time with all my clients, whether they're personal clients, clients inside Magellan Network, is minimum standards of care, right? So if we're going to take a client on, there are going to be minimums that we're going to do for that person. And one of the minimums is, if not a full-blown financial plan, which may be overkill for a lot of people, is at minimum, we're going to create a balance sheet. Some people will call that a net worth statement. So like a 1 or 2 pager, assets, liabilities, planning 101. Here's my question. If you were to look at all your clients that you're responsible for, so AAAs, AA's, A's, gold, silver, platinum, bronze, however you do it, what percentage of them have a balance sheet that's less than 12 months old? And is it part of your review protocol with your clients to execute and or update said balance sheet? Simple. I have clients that come into my world, and we talk about optimization, which is a term I give, is optimize, right? Which means get the most out of a singular situation, scenario, whatever it is. Optimize it, right? Maximize. When you go through this balance sheet process, you'll find assets, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, 401ks that people forgot about. It's a fascinating endeavor. And sometimes, and I'm going to share a story with you, one that just happened literally 48 hours ago. I was talking to one of my clients, actually it's a team. And, they've been with me for a couple of years now, so they know what's important, right? So one of actually the leader was in a review with a AAA client. So this is a client that, multiple seven-digit, asset size, been with them for a number of years. And he was working under assumptions. Well, great client, we hang out, quote unquote friend, right, if you will, one of those deals. And so it's easy in our minds, and this is where the game is, right? It's easy in our minds to just say, well, I don't need to go do this step. I don't need to go through that process of a balance sheet. I know that I've known them for 20 years, And what happens is advisors will rationalize it, right? You kind of take it and you'll talk yourself into a narrative that's not based on any fact, right? Because if you think about what the narrative is, they didn't tell you something, and you don't want to face that, so you kind of just don't deal with it, right? So anyway, he knows I'm gonna be chapping in his ear because I kind of make that impression sometimes. So he goes through the process, and he says, like, we're going to do this balance sheet thing. Here's why we're doing it, right? We want to understand how all of our assets correlate in our work, and so we start going through it. And we start going through it, and lo and behold, and it almost felt bad asking the question, do you have any other brokerage or investment accounts, right? Just simple question. Guy says, yeah, matter of fact, I do. I've got this over here and that's over there, and there's like 2 or 3 other firms. We cobble it all together, it's $4 million. Now, we can sit there and say the advisor did a crap job. I'm not saying that's not inaccurate, but the reality is this. The advisor has done a good job. They care about the client, they serve them well, but they assumed. They were under the assumption that if there's a change in status, that it would be declared, right? And a lot of you operate under that. I see it all the time. And so here's the question I'm going to ask you. If you don't have a 1-year balance sheet or newer, how do you know? Would you swear on your children's lives? Are you that certain about it? Because my belief is you're not certain about it, you assume it. And that will cost you minimum 5-figure personal income. Quite frankly, more than likely, it's costing you 6-figure a year income by operating under this mental narrative. So this is the cycle. So optimization, it's simple. The hard part or the challenging part is understanding the psychology that the advisor needs to have to execute this. Okay. So number 1, we make no assumptions. Number 2, we run our protocol. So every review, right, we're going to update a financial plan, balance sheet, net worth statement, something where we have declarations. Next, if a client doesn't want to do this process with you, what does that say about the relationship? Maybe you're being slightly delusional that you think it's better than it actually is, right? So I have those psychology, right? So no assumptions. If they don't say yes, that now we have a different situation on our hands, right? In terms of the relationship. And you run a protocol. Doctors, and I go back to medicine a lot because I think there's a lot to be learned as an industry from the medical profession. Protocols, right? And the way I like to explain it sometimes is, let's say you go for your annual physical. Like a client would come in for their annual review, right? Let's kind of parallel that for a second. You go to your doctor, and it's time for your physical, and so the doctor comes in, and he or she, and they flip the chart a little bit, and they kind of eyeball you up and down, right, like this, and say, you look about the same you did last year. I think you're good to go. See you in 12 months, right? So in other words, no protocols, right? They didn't take any blood, they didn't weigh you, no heart rate, EKG, nothing, right? Appearance is about the same. We're good to go. That's the equivalent of what most advisors do in their review process. They'll bring a client in, or Zoom them, or go to meeting them, or do it on the phone, whatever, and they look at their accounts, and it looks pretty good, right? And it's fluff. And then they get into the markets and all the other crap that nobody cares about. Seriously, your clients don't care about your market update. They can care less. They can care less about what you talk about in terms of, well, here's what we think from a geopolitical, economic thing. They can care less for that. They can get that on CNBC, Fox Biz. They can get this if you're watching. They have way more data points on that kind of crap than you're going to give them in a review. I'll get it right here on the phone, right? Plenty of information. Why don't you focus on them and their situation and their balance sheet and their goals and what's keeping them up at night, right? Who cares about that? It literally can drive me crazy when I talk to a brand new client, or I'm in a conference or a training, or somebody comes into one of our one-day masterminds, and we're talking about, hey, how do you want to review, and walk me through it, and it's like, well, we kind of, we get all the information together, we put in we bind it up, right, like 80, 90, 100 pages. Nobody's going to read, by the way. And then we talk about what's been going on in the markets, okay, and then we talk about what we think is going to go on in the markets. Total hypothetical, you have no clue in reality. And then we may spend 10 or 15 minutes on kind of what their investments are doing, and then it's some random BS, and out we go, right? And that's what a typical advisor does. Now, why? Because it's easy. It's the same spiel pretty much all the time. If you're doing 10 to 15 reviews that week, it's about 10 to 15 same spiel, right? With some nuances in terms of the portfolio, perhaps. That is not value add. That is not optimization. That is not leverage. That is nothing. That is just doing something so you continue to get paid. period. And I admonish the industry because, quite frankly, that's what most advisors do. The review process is totally broken. It's total BS. It doesn't lead to optimization. It doesn't lead to a greater client experience. It's just a regurgitation of information that the client really doesn't care about, period. But yet we do it because, well, that's what everybody else does, right? So I want to give you a different alternative, something else to look at. What would happen if you literally, in your client reviews, check in with them, see if they have any new financial goals first, any new issues or concerns, go through, update their financial plan, balance sheet, net worth statement, tell them how their investments are doing briefly, if they have any questions, right? And maybe you raise something that needs to be raised, like the need for long-term care insurance, estate planning, a change in their allocation. Why don't you do something that creates value for them? Instead of the same old, same old. If you were to, at minimum, have a goal this year, 2020, we're doing this January 2020, early in the year. If you were to have a goal of, I will, between now and New Year's ball drop 2021, at minimum, have a balance sheet for all my clients. We're going to do that. We're just going to get everybody to declare 2 things. Number 1, you're going to find actionable opportunities. Number 2, you're going to know you have all the clients' opportunities. In other words, they're optimized, they're locked into you. There's no competitors. There's no joint custody, right? Number 3, they don't want to play. Well, what kind of relationship now do we have, right? So those are just some things that you can be aware of going forward that I want you to think about, right? So I want to thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Again, this is tangible, actionable, get it done stuff now. Some of you are going to write me, Joe, do you have examples of a balance sheet? Google it. Plenty of documents. You don't need my help for that, right? Find it. Next, if this makes sense to you and the way I operate makes sense to you, for like real, raw, tangible, I don't do fluff. Come spend 30 days with me inside Magellan Network. So just go to magellannetwork.net, fill out an application, play my game for 30 days, make you a lot of money. Until next time, Coach Joe, let's go get them. Let's be uncomfortable. Let's be great. So there you have it. If you really enjoyed watching this episode, go ahead and subscribe to the Magellan Network Show with Coach Joe here on YouTube. And remember, I'm always here to help you become a better entrepreneur, business owner, and financial advisor. With that, I'll see you next time on the Magellan Network Show with me, Coach Joe. Take care and goodbye.